Inside the cockpit of Singapore Airlines Flight 319, two pilots sit drenched in sweat. They have just forced their massive Boeing 777 down onto a rain-slicked runway in Indonesia, and their fuel gauges read an alarming number: 500 kilograms. For an aircraft of this size, 500 kilograms is practically fumes. If forced to abort this landing and climb away one more time, the engines would have starved of fuel and flamed out over the island. Aviation is an industry built entirely around strict legal redundancies and mandated fuel reserves. The question is how a modern airliner, piloted by an experienced crew, ends up mere seconds away from total system failure. 14 hours earlier at London Heathrow, the mission began with a routine calculation. In long-haul aviation, more fuel provides more time and more options. However, that fuel is also immense weight, and carrying it across the globe increases costs and burns into the airline's profit margins. This chart compares their starting load to the aircraft's capacity. Based on a forecast predicting temporary afternoon showers in Asia, the captain loaded 106,000 kilos of fuel. This load satisfied legal requirements, leaving 65,000 kilos of empty space in the wing tanks. While this fuel load was entirely by the book, it represented a specific trade-off. Every kilogram of fuel left behind on the tarmac in London was a direct trade of emergency safety buffers for financial savings. Efficiency-focused decisions establish a hard limit on exactly how much bad luck a flight crew is mathematically permitted to survive. As they arrived over Singapore, the crew was already running a deficit. Stronger than expected headwinds along the 14-hour route had steadily eaten into their initial fuel buffer. The temporary afternoon shower they had planned for in London had evolved into a monster storm. The weather system completely consumed Changi Airport, dropping visibility to 200 meters and forcing air traffic control to suspend all arrivals. This holding pattern diagram shows the brutal math. Trapped by air traffic control, their engines burned 100 kilos of fuel every minute. As the storm drifted outward, swallowing alternate airports, their safety nets were wiped out entirely. The crew was locked into a mathematical countdown, where every passing second at Samco systematically reduced their chance of survival. With fuel levels plunging, air traffic control relocated the flight to a southern holding waypoint called Samco. From here, they were positioned perfectly between the closed Changi Airport and a clear Indonesian facility named Batam. Here, a cognitive trap set in. Diverting to Indonesia would strand hundreds of passengers and cause massive logistical chaos, so the captain held on to the hope that Singapore would reopen. This is plan continuation bias, the dangerous tendency to stick to an original plan even as the evidence shifts against it. To stay close to his original destination, the captain decided to fly a full 360-degree orbit around the Samco waypoint. That single, hopeful maneuver burned through irreplaceable fuel. Human psychological bias can drain a critical emergency resource just as effectively as a mechanical leak. By the time the captain accepted the diversion to bottom, the margins were gone. The crew was forced to broadcast a Mayday fuel emergency, knowing they only had enough remaining fuel to attempt a single landing approach. This map shows the bottom approach. Panicking to save fuel, they cut the corner, executing a steep intercept angle near the runway. This rushed geometry caused the autopilot to reject the landing. Off the centerline, the computer refused to lock on. The crew had to take manual control in deteriorating visibility. Fighting heavy rain and brutal winds, the pilots attempted to correct wing alignment, but the aircraft was too unstable. They were forced to jam the throttles forward and abort. Across 3 consecutive go-arounds, the engines roared to full power, devouring vast quantities of their precious remaining fuel. The decision to skip stabilizing procedures in an effort to save fuel is what triggered the technical failure that ultimately burned the rest of it. With alarms blaring and the fuel gauge reading a terrifying 1,000 kilos, the captain committed to a desperate teardrop maneuver. He flew straight ahead, executed a tight U-turn, and aimed at the opposite side of the Bantam runway with 0 instrument landing guidance. The captain hand-flew the entire final approach while battling a massive tailwind and heavy rain. He kept his eyes darting between the instruments and the blurred runway lights outside the windshield, operating with no margin for error. The main gear slammed onto the tarmac, and the aircraft finally slowed to a halt. When they turned onto the taxiway, the total fuel remaining was less than 500 kilos. The crew touched down with moments to spare, beating a fatal mathematical equation by mere seconds. The critical fuel state of Flight Pre-19 resulted from a compounding sequence of minor events, with each setback further eroding the safety margins established in London. A baseline fuel load was systematically depleted by a cascading combination of unpredicted weather, cognitive biases, and technical limitations. When highly complex systems strip away physical safety buffers to optimize for financial efficiency, they trade away their only reliable insurance policy against human error and bad luck.